am here at FreedomFest doing these amazing interviews on values and ethics. And I'm here with journalist Juliette Fairly. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I am very happy to have you here with me today. And I want to be clear, the conversation I like to have is not in any way to try to get you to be more progressive or more conservative or anything like that at all. It's to talk about where you kind of stand when it comes to your values and your ethics, and to see where they match and how they overlap. We often talk about the idea, if you see it here, of someone's values very often being more conservative or more progressive, but their ethics sometimes being more either coercive or more persuasive, either one of those two. And we're trying to move people to understand that, you know what? In reality, it's all about human respect.
Yeah.
Right? That's really a key aspect. So if I could ask you, if you would say, do you think your values and your ethics overlap, don't overlap, are totally separate? How do you feel about, if you had to pick a party, if you were forced to pick a party between only the two major ones, Democrat, Republican, which would you choose if you had to pick, you're forced to pick one?
I think the GOP.
You wouldn't. So with that in mind, I would think that many people in the GOP lean more conservative, not all, but I think everybody, whether you lean left or lean right, wants to be happy.
Yeah.
Right? Even though that happiness may mean different things, different people, right?
Yeah.
I think we would agree that if you want to be happy, if someone were to either hurt you, harm you in some way, that's going to make your happiness lower. It's going to reduce your happiness, right?
Yeah.
In addition to that, I think if someone were to say, try to take your property or take your things or steal something, either through actual theft or even through fraud, right? Somehow lying to you. I think that's going to reduce your happiness too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think everyone would agree that that's every time.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to ask you is, do you think that you and I being here, we would agree with that? Do you think others agree with that too, or is that only people who think like us?
No, I think everybody thinks like that.
Everybody does. I love that. So what I'm hearing is, this is basically a principle.
Yeah.
A principle that if you are affected by either violence or harm or theft or fraud, that is going to reduce, in every case, it's going to reduce your happiness, your harmony,
Definitely.
your prosperity.
Yeah, it's going to cross your boundary.
It's going to cross your boundary. There we go. Yes. Okay. It's great. So let me ask you, if the, say, GOP were to decide to enforce its will upon people in, say, something like who people can marry or love, how would you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't like that. I don't think. No.
Can you tell me, how would that manifest itself? In other words, how would that harm somebody? Right? I mean, if you already love someone and you're already in a relationship, and if I'm already in a relationship, why do I care about somebody else? How would that affect us?
Well, because it sets a tone.
Okay.
In a group. And so the group tends to follow the tone.
Sure.
And so if you're not in step with the tone of the group, then you're going to feel like an outsider in the group.
So you feel almost like there's an environment.
Yeah.
An environment almost becomes coercive in a way.
Well, you can pick up on it.
Okay.
The vibe or the tone, and people might look at you disapprovingly, you know.
What about if it's government, meaning that government says you may or may not marry someone for whatever reason government decides? Does that add to the environment? Does it not matter? Do people just go, I don't care?
Well, the problem with the state
Yep.
is that people are followers, and they're not individuals. In an ideal world, if they were individuals, it wouldn't bother them, and they'd be like, okay, the state can do whatever they want. But the problem is, with a lot of what either party prescribes to, is that it trickles down to a lower level, and they may then act on these attitudes or beliefs with violence.
Got it. Okay.
And then that's
when you say violence, do you mean violence from an individual, like a vigilante? Or do you mean like police coming to arrest you?
It could be any of that, and that's the problem with a lot of positions that some of the leaders take is there's unintended consequences.
Got it.
That they don't foresee happening. So, for example, when they outlaw gay marriage, they just felt like it was outlawing gay marriage. But what happens is the lowest common denominators among our society then act on that as if to say, well, we hate you because you're not, So that's the problem.
So you're saying that when government enforces its ideals on the rest of the population, that very often it is the lower socioeconomic people, the poorest people, who get affected the worst.
Who suffer, yeah.
They suffer the worst. Got it. Okay.
I think so. I mean, I think the upper class elite people are not going to go around attacking people, or
right.
They have too much to lose.
Got it.
You've got the lower common denominator, the lower income people who have nothing to lose and may be drinking and going out there and, oh, you're gay, or you're in a couple, you look like you're married and you're a same-sex couple, we're going to beat you up.
Okay.
And
so let me ask you, if you're staying with the idea of the wealthy or the more elite versus people who are poorer, does government affect it differently? In other words, if I'm a gay person and I want to have a relationship and I'm wealthy, do the cops kind of ignore me? Am I able to get around it?
Well,
and if I'm poorer, does someone tattletale on me and get the cops to come get me or something?
No, it's more like if you have money and you have a problem, you can pay your way out of the problem.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And the lower income people cannot pay themselves their way out of a problem.
Okay. Well, let me try, if I could, to go one place more, if I could. What about the idea of government deciding how to punish people for, say, hiring undocumented workers? What about something like that? I mean, there are people who would believe that, no, hire who you want to hire, who cares they're undocumented. And people say, no, they're undocumented, companies can't do it, we got to punish them. What about something like that?
Well, that is problematic.
Tell me what?
Because you have people who are documented, who need the work. And so if you hire undocumented people, they may charge a lower rate.
Sure.
And then you're not then having work for people who are documented, who are charging market rate.
Isn't that though a case though then if I'm that employer who says, you know what, I need labor, and these undocumented workers, they're cheaper, you're right, I can use them. If the government then says, wait a minute, I'm going to punish you now, I'm going to either fine you or shut you down or whatever the case may be, isn't that also government coercion stopping me from doing what I want to do also?
Well, you have to think about the greater good.
Greater good, okay. Okay.
I'm always going to have an answer for you.
I love it. No, it's good. Okay.
And the greater good is that you've got documented people who are out of work.
Right.
And so what happens to them?
Well, couldn't someone say, wait a minute, if you're a legal American citizen, you can get government assistance. If you're not, you can't. So maybe we should, and it's just an argument, a counter argument, right? Maybe you should let these people work and then people can get government assistance. That's a greater good. Everyone has something. Isn't that an argument someone could make?
Well, the problem with that is that it's productive to work.
Oh, okay.
And it's a need that we have. And it's a psychological need.
So
and
there's...
if you don't work, if you don't have some sort of occupation, then you are going to be left to your own devices, which could lead you down a path of unintended consequences.
Okay. So if I hear you right, you're saying, look, government shouldn't be coercive. Now, government is coercive. However, there are exceptions. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I think the government should protect its citizens.
Okay, so for example, mandates on vaccines, things like that. Mandates on gun control, removing guns from the population.
Wait, I don't.
Things like that.
It depends on if you think that the vaccine is protective.
Okay, well, a lot of people do.
Right.
A lot of people think guns are bad, right? So, if with what you're saying, if I hear you right, you're saying the government should protect. So maybe the government should take the guns to make sure that people don't shoot each other. Maybe the government should mandate vaccines and masks and mandate these things to protect the population.
I don't equate the vaccine with the gun.
You don't? Okay.
No.
Why not?
Well, the vaccine is not really a vaccine, it's a therapy.
Okay.
So I don't really agree with the vaccine.
Okay. But what if government does? For example,
Well,
in this
does.
case,
It does.
I live in New York.
Yeah.
My governor
Yeah.
100% believes in the vaccine.
Yes.
Clearly she believes in
Yeah.
the vaccine. 100%.
Yeah.
So with that logic then, shouldn't she want to protect us and force a vaccine on us?
I think we should have voted on it.
Okay. So if we voted on it, and in New York being 3-1 Democrats Republican, odds are she's going to win.
Maybe.
Odds
I mean,
are.
a lot of people didn't want to take the vaccine.
I agree.
Democrats.
But imagine if she had won. Would that then be okay?
If there was a vote to the people, a ballot initiative,
Yep.
as to whether or not it should be mandated, if they had won, what was your question?
Then it should be mandated.
Well, no, I don't think. I really don't believe that. I feel like your body.
So even in the case of a vote not mandated.
No.
Okay, so why have the vote?
True. I mean, I don't think we should have the vaccine. I believe that President Trump made an error. I fully supported President Trump, but I believe that instead of focusing on the vaccine,
Yeah.
he should have focused on treatment for
Got it.
COVID-19,
Okay.
and rather than a vaccine.
Okay.
Because they rolled that out in 6 months, and there really was not enough time to really, test it and everything. So I think a treatment would have been a better approach.
So what if people in New York State voted to say, you know what, we want to have undocumented workers be in businesses? We vote and we say they should be able to do it. Do you think that makes it okay to then hire undocumented workers?
Well, you have no choice at that point because the people have voted.
I'm not seeing a difference. My question here is, I feel like if the vote matters to mandate, shouldn't it also work for the undocumented workers the same way it would work for a vaccine?
No, actually, I don't think any of it. Really, I don't prescribe to any of it.
So no exceptions.
Well, I feel that in this situation, this hypothetical,
Yep.
that first of all, why are they letting in the undocumented? So we always have to go back to the root
Sure.
cause.
Sure.
Right? So the root cause of the problem we have today with the vaccine is that we focused on the vaccine rather than treatment. The root cause with the undocumented is we're letting them in.
I think some people would say the reason why we have undocumented workers is because a lot of businesses want the cheap labor.
Right, and that's a problem. And why do they want cheap labor?
They're businesses. They like to have cheap labor. Doesn't every business want cheap labor?
Right, so that is a problem because you have to compensate your workers. And that goes back to slavery of the African American, which is that we never dealt with that. And so now we're still dealing with it.
Got it.
And that needs to be, there needs to be something there. I don't know if it's reparations, right? I just heard recently that the Native Americans in California are being given free tuition.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
And in North Carolina, in Asheville, they tried to give free tuition to African Americans through scholarships. Asheville was sued, and they settled, and they stopped the program. So I actually spoke with the people who sued, and I said, what is the difference?
Right.
Are you going to sue the Native American, the University of California? And they said, well, no, Native Americans are a political group. So, well, why are they a political group and the African Americans are not a political group? That doesn't make no sense.
Okay.
So we're still shortchanging, and until that is addressed.
So let me see if I can find maybe a solution that would be non-coercive. What if, imagine, sake of argument, we're talking fictitious, of course, right? What if there were, say, 2 Ellis Island type facilities on the southern border, but they're privately owned. They're privately owned, and they're owned by literally recruiting companies who get paid. Recruiting companies, right? So that people, when they get a job, the recruiting company gets paid by the company that hires them, right? That kind of thing. So that if you wanted to come to America to work, you could legally do it if you went to the Ellis Island. And the Ellis Island would do something like, keep you quarantined for X amount of time, do a background check, whatever the case may be. And if any state that wanted it would opt in, if any states they opt in, and then those people could go to the states that opt in and they get a special orange card. That card allows them to work for 2 years. They may not get any public assistance. and they have to check in every 2 years.
No.
What about
no,
something like that?
No, they need to employ the African Americans who are out of work, who are in the ghettos, who are on drugs, who are in prison, who are in neighborhoods of school to pipeline neighborhoods. That's who they need to be employing. That's who they need to be vetting for these jobs and putting and giving them therapy and helping them so that they can be productive citizens of the United States. That's where we need to focus, I believe.
Okay, so what if we were then, my worry is, if we do that, not that I'm against the idea at all, but if we were to do that, what government would probably do is say, there's a quota system. That's what government usually does, right? You must have X number of these people in your company, and if you don't, we punish you in some way, shape, or form.
Well, no, it's not a quota system. It's actually going to the ghettos and getting the African Americans. They're American.
100%.
And you say,
I grew up
okay,
in the South Bronx, I understand completely.
We have programs, we're going to get you working. We're going to get the Americans working.
I've seen these programs, though, is what I'm saying. I've seen government programs over the past 40 years do exactly and say that, and none of them so far have worked.
Well, I don't know. That's the racism that we still have in the United States.
Oh, it's racism.
Well, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, that's the first thought that comes to mind.
Sure.
It could be racism. It could be, I have no idea what the problem is. But I do know the Job Corps, they don't have a quota. They say anybody 16 to 18, we give you clothes,
I know Job Corps.
we give you, food to eat, and we give you shelter, and you come work.
Yep.
And so I think they catch a lot of African Americans and Hispanics through that program and push them through, give them skills and everything.
What if you were able to change it and say something like this? I'll give you another concept. What if you were to say, hey, employer, in any state, California, New York, North Carolina, if you hire someone who is a convicted felon, and by percentage there are more people of color who are convicted felons, right? So, but anyone convicted felon, you hire them, we will make sure you pay no payroll tax, federal or state, for 3 years. Giving an incentive to the business to hire felons.
Yeah.
How about something like that?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah? The reason why I'm bringing it up is I'm trying to see that I feel like our principle we talked about earlier about not harming people, about not coercing people, and making less happiness, if we could instead incentivize people so that we could still get what we want, which is more people who are felons to be working, more Americans to be working, but not using coercion, that we might be able to still keep to that same principle of human respect. The idea that if we care about human respect, we can be sure we will have more happiness, more harmony, more prosperity.
I think that's good, and I feel like we should go even deeper.
Deeper, okay.
Because when you're having to incentivize employment of convicted felons,
yeah.
Why are the majority of the convicted felons African American? We need to go to the family.
Okay.
And figure out why so many of them are becoming felons.
Sure.
And I feel that it's because there's no religion anymore. Because when my father was African American and they went to church.
I remember.
My
father was a Baptist.
1929, and they really had nothing really to keep them out of trouble but the church. And then somehow we got away, the African American community got away from the church.
But are you saying that we want to put the church in schools?
Well, they dismantled that, and so I don't know what the answer to that is.
What if we were to allow nonprofits like churches to be able to be daycares again? Not regulate them out of existence, but instead, because back in the day, churches were daycares.
Oh, were they? I didn't know
yes,
that.
back in the day they were. Lots of local churches would be daycares.
Okay.
So what if we would allow people to choose, right? You're a working mom, your mom and dad, you work. You could either
subsidize the churches to be child care centers?
You wouldn't have to subsidize them, just not punish them.
Had they punished?
The regulations were so high the churches couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Oh. What do you mean?
They were regulated out of existence. To build out a child care isn't the same as building out a church. So you have to literally make almost like a separate company, build everything out.
Yeah. I think that's a problem that they need to fix that. Somebody needs to pass a law. And then there's also, so that would help. And then also the patent system. I don't know if you saw that movie. They passed this law under Obama which makes it's first to file instead of first to invent. So there's a lot of problems that are making the situation, a bad situation, worse.
Right. I'm glad to hear you say that. So if I get it right, as a general rule, you think government can be very coercive. You would prefer it not to be.
I don't know where this happened, where we started to separate. I understand separation of church and state, but I think that's where the problem with the African American started. That was an unintended consequence.
Right.
And as much as some people don't like Jesus Christ or Christianity, it served a very good purpose.
Sure.
And it still serves a good purpose to help people do the right thing, if nothing else. I mean, even if you don't believe in Jesus Christ in the end, it still will help you stay out of jail.
So you think this environment is a key piece?
I guess. I'm not sure what that is, but I guess. I believe that we need something to keep people from having sex before marriage, from giving... You're talking about outlawing abortion. Okay, we've taken we've reversed Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
Fine, but what are we doing to help these girls and these young men, young girls and young boys and young men and young women to refrain from engaging in sex before marriage? We're not doing anything about that. That's a problem.
Is that a place for government? I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like what you're saying is this more of a social issue more than government, or do you think they're the same? My worry why I ask this question is, generally speaking, when government gets involved, it's almost always through forcing people to do things. It's almost always. Wouldn't this be better as a community activity or a community action? Or is that not realistic?
I think church. Because it's a moral.
Okay.
It's a moral thing.
So it's more of a localized communities, local churches, people being more involved.
Yeah, because if you look like at the Mormon church, they get married young so that they can have sex. And then if they have a child, then it's within their family, it's with their parents, and that seems to be working a lot better than what we've got going. I mean, it's not perfect. I'm not saying the Mormon church is perfect.
No, I don't think any system's perfect. Obviously, we're human beings. We're going to be imperfect, of course.
But
absolutely.
If not, and they don't have separation of church and state. So, and I'm not saying that that's a solution, but somewhere in between. Something where we can teach these children, these teenagers, the peer pressure is
so if I hear what you're saying we need to be supporting communities more so that communities can support the local churches more so that people can be part of those same communities to more support each other and do the right thing.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to do the right thing without an incentive.
Incentive, I like that. Incentive is better than coercion. I like that. That's good.
And that's what the church gave. The church incentivized people that, if I don't do this, then I'm going to die and go to hell. And you would rather have... It may be a false one. Who knows? We don't know what happens.
Sure.
But it sure did work.
So you think it's better to have the church, local communities, fix these problems or work on these social problems than have government work on these social problems?
Oh, the state is horrible.
Got it.
The state is... You do not want to get involved with the state.
So you said something important. You said, look, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I feel like what you're saying is it goes back to what we talked about. You're saying someone can believe or not. You can be a Mormon, you could be whatever, you could be a Baptist. You're saying that I want to respect your religion regardless. Am I reading you correctly?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel that it's all about the golden rule. And children are not taught that anymore, so they go around shooting people because they're mad. It's like, how did we get here? If they were learning about the golden rule, if they were being raised in a Christian environment, and that was the whole point of Jesus Christ coming, was in order to say, to get rid of eye for an eye. But that's what we're back to.
Right.
So, I don't know.
So I feel like Jesus is even about persuasion.
I guess. I mean,
I like that.
He incentivized by saying that there
maybe he was more liberty-loving than we might think.
Well, he had brought in eternal life, I guess, and so that is an incentive, eternal life. Like, this is not the only world, and it's the next one. And people don't have that view anymore.
So better incentives, less coercion, respecting people's religions, respecting religion in general, right? Respecting people's beliefs in local communities. That's what you think is going to be a better answer for us.
Yes, and I believe that the Christianity, with the whole eternal life, that there's a next life. This is the only life. It is very crucial. Not all religions teach that.
So let me give a little bit of pushback if I could. What if you feel someone's doing right, but they don't like the religious aspect of it?
Yeah, I understand that, and my father was like that. He was raised in the very Protestant in North Carolina, African American, but all of his brothers, none of them wound up in jail. They all were military people. They all did the right thing.
And they're not religious. They don't practice.
No, none of them. Well, my dad, I don't think any of them were religious. I mean, his mother was. But when he got to be an adult, he was just like, oh, you just do the right thing to do the right thing. So I think the training would help people, whether they, and at some point when you're 20, 21, you can believe or you can choose to believe or not, but at least you have those morals instilled in you.
I like that. So you're actually saying, again, I keep pushing back to it because I feel like it's a critical aspect. Even if someone doesn't believe it, they're still doing the right thing. That's still, they deserve respect still.
That if they're doing the right thing, regardless of, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, the point, what I'm saying is we need to train these children coming up in some kind of value system so they're not shooting each other, so that they're not having sex outside of marriage, so that they're not getting pregnant.
Then, I'll ask that question, is the value, and if I'm wrong, correct me, is the value then the idea of respecting everybody? Respecting yourself? Respecting others? Respecting, my choices that I make, that other people make?
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of these kids are being abused too in their homes.
Okay.
And so it's hard for them to have respect for themselves.
Good point.
So if you're in an abusive home and then you don't have anybody around you talking to you about Jesus Christ loves you and then you're going to put yourself out.
Right.
You're going to start exploit yourself sexually. So it's a very complicated situation. Even when you had the whole Jesus Christ movement going on in the United States, you still had people falling through the cracks, but not as many.
Sure. Again, nothing's perfect.
You still had girls
100%.
Getting pregnant. You still had young boys going to jail. You had that whole syndrome. However, now it's just even worse.
So do you feel that you have people here who hear the religious tone and say, no, not for me? Do you feel there's somebody doing that?
Oh, there's a lot. But I mean, when you're a kid,
But we have adults who are about too, though.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying it needs to start with the children.
What if you started with the idea for everybody, human respect?
Yeah. I don't know, though.
That would be the basic that we talk about, so that when someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm a Christian, I want to talk about Jesus, they don't go, shut up. They go, okay, I respect you. What do you feel?
Yeah, no,
Let's have a conversation.
But I don't know if you can get there without having a certain level of training in you to be open.
So maybe that's our goal, to train people in human respect, so that we can be open to all the other things that we need?
Yeah, but I think you need to do it when you're children.
But I'm not a child anymore.
I know, but how are you going to train an adult to be something that they...
Am I irredeemable now?
Well, they might be. I mean, some people might be open to it, but some people, the damage is done.
Yes, I think you have a valid point. My only pushback would be, I'd like to try to help everybody.
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely.
6 to 60.
Absolutely.
8 to 80.
Yeah, no, I
Whatever
agree.
the case
It's
may be.
very complicated, but yeah, you're right.
It is. Excellent. Well, I want to say thank you. I mean, you gave me a lot of good insight, and I see where your exceptions are, and I hope we can find places where we can be, more and more about respect.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole thing is about respect.
I agree completely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Okay.